Chris Graham here for Trailblazer RV. We're in the service department at Trailblazer. We're going to take you through a new RV orientation on a 2018 KZ Connect 312 BHK. Let's start right here at the front of the trailer. This one has some aftermarket accessories installed on it, including a jacket bike carrier. So it's a 2-bike carrier, one bike here, and use the rubber straps to secure the bikes. To access your propane system, you'll have to remove the top part of the bike carrier. So with a 3/4 inch ratchet, remove this bolt and pull it out. And the top half of the bike carrier just lifts out. Then you've got easy access to your propane tanks. You can open the access hatch to turn the valves on and off, or remove the whole cover to access the tanks themselves. These are dual 30-pound propane tanks. Both of these are full right now, and you have an automatic switchover propane regulator. So right now, the regulator is pointing to this as the supply bottle, and that makes this the reserve bottle. There's a little sight glass on that regulator showing red right now, but as I open the valve on the supply bottle, that sight glass turns from red to clear, showing that propane is flowing. What we recommend is opening the valves on both bottles. Always open the valve slowly and all the way, and then the RV will pull propane from the supply bottle until it's empty, and it will automatically start to pull from the reserve bottle. When that happens, the sight glass will turn red again, and you can switch the regulator over to the second bottle. Now you can remove the first bottle without ever shutting down your propane system. Behind your propane tanks is your 12-volt battery. This is a 12-volt deep cycle RV marine battery, and there's a few different leads going to the battery here. So we've got to the positive terminal, we've got 2 red wires, one from the RV itself, and one from a solar charging system that's been installed on this RV. To the negative, you've got your black negative terminal coming from the RV, your ground from the solar panel, as well as a second ground from an aftermarket component that was installed by the previous owner. So when you're hooking up your batteries, red to positive, and both the blacks and the yellow to negative. It is a flooded deep cycle, or a flooded wet cell deep cycle battery, so it does require some maintenance. Once or twice a year, we recommend you pop these 2 caps off and check the fluid levels in the 6 cells you find under those caps. If the fluid seems a little low, or if, especially if you can see metal plates sticking through the liquid, top it up with some distilled water and put a good charge on the battery. We also recommend removing this battery for winter storage and storing indoors, somewhere where it's not going to freeze. And if possible, put a trickle charge on the battery once over the off season in storage. Around the side of the trailer, you've got your data plate here, where you'll find your VIN number, as well as wheel and tire information for the RV. The previous owners installed some levels, so leveling front to back here on the side, and leveling side to side here on the front. Inside the storage compartment is where you'll find your battery, your power cord. It's a 30 amp power cord, and often the RV sites you stay at will have 30 amp service. When they don't, we also supply a park adapter that'll break this 30 amp connection down to a regular 15 amp household style power connection. We'll find that inside the trailer. There's a little access panel here that can be easily removed. It's just held on by 2 screws. The access panel can be removed to expose the water pump. For winterizing, you'll need to access this water pump to pump antifreeze through the lines. And you'll see here a couple of valves. You have a siphon line here designed for pumping antifreeze into the system when you winterize the RV. Right now, the valves are in the summer position, so the water pump is pumping from the freshwater holding tank. To pump from the siphon line, close this valve and open this valve, and that makes this the suction side of the water pump. You can put this into a jug of antifreeze, turn on your water pump, and pump antifreeze right through the system. That way you don't have to run antifreeze through your freshwater holding tank. For now, I'll leave these in the summer position so the pump is ready to pump from the freshwater tank. Right next to that is your freshwater connections. So you can fill your freshwater holding tank from here with a conventional garden hose. What we would recommend though is one of those white non-toxic drinking water hoses, so you don't get the plasticky taste in your drinking water. You can also hook into pressurized city water. If you're staying at a site that has water hookups, you can hook the same hose up to here. If you're doing that, we recommend using a water pressure regulator. That's just a little brass piece about that size, fits on the end of your hose, and maintains proper operating pressure in the water system of the RV. Directly below those, if you'll draw a line straight down, is your water drain valve. So open this valve to drain fresh water from the freshwater holding tank. You've also got stabilizer jacks on all 4 corners of the RV. So once you get the RV placed on the site and relatively level, crank these jacks down to be snug with the ground, but you don't want to actually lift the RV with them. Just snug with the ground to take some of the side-to-side movement out of the RV. A couple of things to mention here at your running gear. Your tires are filled to 65 PSI. It's stamped right on the sidewall of the tire, 65 PSI cold, and we do recommend running them right at 65 PSI. Your lug nuts are torqued to 100 foot-pounds, and we do recommend periodically retorquing your lug nuts, or certainly if you have a rim and tire off for any reason, they'll need to be retorqued to 100 foot-pounds. And here at the center of the wheel is a removable center cap. You can pop this cap off with a flathead screwdriver to access your Easy Lube axles. So there's a rubber cap that can pull out and a grease zerk behind it, allowing you to use a grease gun to grease your inner and outer wheel bearings. That doesn't eliminate the need to repack your wheel bearings, it just prolongs the intervals. So instead of recommending a wheel bearing repack every year, maybe a wheel bearing repack every 2 or 3 years. Right here is your sewer termination system. We supply a new 20-foot medium heavy-duty sewer hose. It's stored in the bumper right now. When you go to dump your holding tanks, hook your hose on right here. Other end goes into the ground. And you've got 2 valves, a larger black valve and a smaller gray valve. Always dump your black first. Once the sewer from the black tank has finished flowing through the hose, you can close this valve and open the gray valve to dump your sink and shower water, your gray water, and it'll kind of flush out that sewer hose. So there's no sewage left in there when you have to remove the hose. right above that is your 30 amp power cord connection. You saw the power cord up front. It just attaches right here onto the side. Cable and satellite TV hookups there on the side. And your folding cargo tray. 2 pins to pull to release the cargo tray. The cargo tray is good for about 200 pounds, so smaller generators, firewood, lawn chairs, that kind of thing. And behind this, you'll find your sewer tank flush system. So when you're dumping your holding tanks, when you have that black holding tank valve open, you can hook a hose up to here and it'll spray out the inside lining of the tank. Also spray off the monitor probes, keep your monitor panel reading nice and accurately. Below that is your hot water tank. So the hot water tank is a direct spark ignition, gas, electric hot water tank. So it can run on electricity or propane. There's no pilot lights to worry about, it's all direct spark. But there are a couple of things to know in here. There's 2 little black reset buttons. Should the tank ever overheat, most likely because it's been started up without any water in it, you could trip these resets. And before you can start the tank up again, you'll have to come out here and press in on those buttons to reset. The one on the left is for electricity, the one on the right is for propane. The drain plug for the hot water tank is down at the bottom here. So in the winter, when you go to put the RV away for the season, you'll want to drain, as part of your winterizing process, you'll want to drain the hot water tank. You can pull this plug out. Before you do that, make sure to release the pressure using the pressure relief valve. The tank sits somewhere around 40 psi. So if you pull this plug before releasing the pressure, you'll get a bit of a shower. On the end of that plug is an anode rod, just a rod about this long that over time will corrode. And it does this to help preserve the inside lining of the tank. The impurities in the water corrode the rod rather than the inside of the tank. So that can get looking quite pitted and corroded. It's perfectly normal, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, but it does need to be replaced periodically. Depending on the quality of the water, it's usually every 3 to 5 years. Around the side we have your outside kitchen. In the outside kitchen, pretty simple operation here. You've got a 2-burner gas stove top. This does need to be connected to the RV's propane system. Right underneath here, you'll see a quick connect propane line. And your hose for that is right here. So with the quick connect propane line, this will connect right to here, and the other end right to here. There's shut-off valves on both of those, so once they're connected, you'll have to open those shut-off valves before any propane will flow at both quick connects. You have another quick connect system here for your water. So there's a couple of different applications for use with the hot and cold water. There's a simple high-rise faucet here that can connect, or you can connect the hose and high-pressure sprayer for doing dishes, that sort of thing. Leave that off for now. And your fridge, important to note that the fridge in the outside kitchen runs off electricity only, so you'll have to be plugged into power or running your generator for that fridge to work. A couple of vents on this side of the trailer that are worth pointing out. One is your furnace vent. The only thing really to keep in mind here is this does get quite hot. So make sure that if you've got young kids around the RV that they know about that and know not to get close to it. The other one is your fridge vent. So this is a vent for air movement through the back of the fridge. You can remove this for access for some maintenance or repair on the back of the fridge, or just to clean out this fridge compartment. But primarily just a vent. There's not very much that you'll ever need to access in there. There is a solar charging port here on the front. You can get a Furrion solar panel to plug into that. Not really necessary on this one where it has a solar system already installed on the roof. Your awning is controlled from just inside the door. So we'll show you how to do that. But first, the step. To extend the step, pull with two hands to roll the first step and flip the second. So flip and roll. And just inside the door is a switch to extend your awning right here. So we'll go ahead and extend that. We've just had this one through our wash bay, so there's a little bit of water in the awning. Always a good idea, if it's wet when you put the awning away, to roll it out when you get home so that it can dry out, so that you're not leaving a bunch of moisture in your awning. And this is a height adjustable power awning, really easy to adjust the height. This straight bar here, you can just pull down on, and that'll adjust the pitch down. You can do that at both sides or just one side. We recommend leaving one side a little lower than the other so you can control where your rainwater drains off. Before you retract the awning, make sure they're both back up to the full height setting. That way the canvas will roll up nice and straight on the roller tube. Come on inside the trailer and I'll show you a few more things. So right here at the entry door are a couple of important switches. This was the awning extend and retract switch, but there's also your slide out switches right here. So we can press and hold the out switch for the slide out. This is a flush floor slide out. So I don't know if you noticed, but it kind of sunk down a little bit as it started to extend. And it's going to do the same thing as it reaches its full extension. If you watch the floor, it's just going to sink down to make a flush transition of the floor. Just like so. And when you hear that ratcheting sound, the slide is fully extended. You can take your finger off the button. Go ahead and run it all the way out though until you hear that sound. That's how you know it's fully extended. This is now running the second slide out. Very similar, should be able to run it out until we hear the ratcheting sound. This one's not a flush floor slide, so it doesn't sink down when it reaches the end of its travel. Just like so. Two backlit switches here. One for your LED awning light just outside the door, and the second for your interior blue LED accent lighting. And then the main switch on here is for your main ceiling lights inside the RV. Here in the kitchen, we've got the 3-burner propane stovetop. So if we turn those 3 burners on, you've got a piezo igniter here that'll ignite all 3 of these burners. And you'll notice that it took a little while to get propane to all 3 of the burners. Anytime you refill or replace your propane tanks, I recommend you come to the stovetop and do exactly that. Just open up the valves and light all 3 burners. It's the easiest way to bleed the air off of the propane system. And once you've bled the air off the propane system, your other appliances, your fridge, furnace, and hot water tank will have no trouble starting up on their own. The only pilot light that you have to worry about in the RV is your oven. And to light the pilot in the oven, turn the knob over to pilot on, push in on that knob, and right here is your pilot assembly. This is where you'll light your pilot. So once you see a flame there, continue to hold in on the knob for 10 or 15 seconds, then release and turn the oven up to temperature. Once you're finished using the oven, you can turn the knob back to pilot on and just leave the pilot burning, or you can turn it all the way off and relight the pilot the next time you need to use the oven. Your fridge is automatic gas electric as well, and what we recommend is to just slide it to the automatic setting. If it has electricity available, it'll always run on that, but if you blow a breaker or if your power cord gets unplugged, it'll sense that and it'll automatically switch over to gas. You can override the automatic to only run on gas. The only situations where you might want to do that is if you want to conserve power, if you're plugged into a weaker breaker, or you might find that your fridge cools a little faster on gas than it does on electricity. Having said that though, it takes several hours to cool an RV fridge, so we recommend getting the fridge running the day before you load up. That way it'll be nice and cold by the time you load your food. And if those lights ever start flashing like they just were, what that means is the fridge has failed to light on gas. In this case, there was probably just a little bit of air left in those propane lines. So the first thing to do there would be to just turn it off, let it sit for a second, and turn it on again and let it start up. This time it's started up just fine. There's also a temperature adjustment here, 1 being the warmest, 5 being the coldest. I usually set it to 3 or 4, but you might find, depending on where you're camping and the ambient temperature, you may need to adjust that a little bit. Shut this off for now. Down here at the floor is your power converter. This is the power center for the entire trailer. So you'll see that your 110 volt circuits are protected by fuses, and your 12 volt circuits, 110 volt by breakers, and your 12 volts by fuses. Primarily 15 amp fuses, but you do have a couple of 40s, so not a bad idea to have some spare fuses along with you. It's not uncommon in an RV to blow a fuse, so we recommend having some spares along just in case. And right next to that is your combination propane and carbon monoxide detector. So this will actually do 3 things. It'll alert you to a potential propane leak, a potential carbon monoxide situation, or a potential low voltage situation. This is wired into the RV's 12 volt battery system. So if the battery ever gets particularly low, it will chime just to alert you to the low voltage. If you start to hear the propane detector going off, it's very likely that there is not a propane leak or a carbon monoxide situation. It's quite commonly just a low voltage situation. Here on the wall is your thermostat. This controls both the heating and cooling systems for the RV. And we're not plugged into 110 volt power right now, so we won't actually be able to fire up the air conditioner. But to do that, you would set the system to cool and just set whatever temperature you're comfortable at. And then you have high and low fan speeds for the air conditioner. You can set it to automatic per the thermostat, low and high, or just always on, low and high for the fan speeds. The furnace has only 1 fan speed, so when you set the system to heat and turn up the thermostat, the fan starts up and it's going to run for about 15 or 20 seconds before you hear a click as the burner lights up. You should be able to hear that in a second. Just like so. So now if we wait a few seconds, we'll have warm air blowing from our furnace. Once it reaches temperature or you shut off the system, the exact same thing happens, only in reverse. The burner goes out immediately, but the fan's going to continue to run for 30 seconds, up to a minute, just to go through its cycle. Make sure when you put the RV away into storage for a few days or weeks, that you actually turn the system off rather than just turning the thermostat all the way down. That way you'll ensure that the furnace isn't coming on unnecessarily when you're not using the trailer. Here in the rear bunk room, not a whole lot to go over in here. You've got individual lights for each bunk with push buttons. The dinette makes down to a bed, and the top bunk folds down just like so. Secondary TV location here with 110 volt and TV antenna hookups. And there is USB charging ports here at the top bunk as well. In the bathroom, a couple of things to cover in here. Right behind me is your monitor panel. So from here you can monitor the levels of your holding tanks. You can see that your gray is completely empty, black is completely empty. Right now your fresh tank is completely empty as well, and your battery is fair. And the reason it's showing a little bit low right now is because that furnace fan was still running. And you saw as the furnace fan shut off, it goes back to good. If it was currently under charge, it would show C for charging. There's also some switches here to activate your water pump, which you do with this switch right here, and your water heater. So the switch on the right to activate your hot water heater on electricity. When that switch is on, you also have to turn on a black rocker switch on the outside of the hot water tank. So you'll have to have both switches on to run the hot water tank on electricity. On propane, turn the switch to the on position and this little DSI fault light comes on. That's indicating that the tank is not running, but it's just like the furnace. If we give it just a second, we should hear the burner start up and that light will go out. Just like so. If that light doesn't go out, or if it goes out briefly and comes back on, that's when you may want to check those black reset buttons on the outside of the hot water tank. Or more likely, check your propane. You may be out of propane. At the toilet, anytime you're using the RV sewer system, you'll want to use a potent toilet chemical. We have toilet chemical in powder, liquid, or tablet form, and any of the three is fine. But when you pour some toilet chemical into the bowl, push halfway down on the flush to fill the bowl with water, and then dump the whole works down into the tank. That chemical needs some water to activate it, so make sure every time you put new chemical into the holding tank, you put it down with some water. You'll need to recharge the toilet chemical in the tank after every time you dump your holding tanks. The last thing to touch here in the bathroom is the GFI power outlet. So it's the same as the power outlets in the bathroom in your house with a test and reset button. The only difference in an RV is this is wired with all of the rest of your power outlets as well. So if you trip your GFI, you'll lose power at all of your power outlets. If you're ever plugged into power and wondering why you're not getting any power from your power outlets, go into the bathroom, reset the GFI, and everything should go back to normal. Here on the roof, you have a smoke detector. This is not wired into the RV's electrical system. It has its own 9-volt battery. So make sure you check this 9-volt battery periodically. Make it part of your annual maintenance of your RV. And here in the bedroom, not a whole lot to cover in here. The bed lifts up, there's some storage beneath the bed, yeah, second TV location, pretty simple. The only other thing that we had not touched on yet is, I mentioned earlier that this trailer had a aftermarket solar charging system installed. The charge controller is actually mounted inside the front storage compartment, but this is the remote panel, so you can see that your batteries are at 69% right now, 12.5 volts. They're not actually currently charging via the solar panels at all because we're indoors in the shop, but if we were outside in the sun, you'd be able to see the amperage that the batteries are charging at as well. And I think that pretty much covers it. Hopefully you've learned something about the 2018 KZ Connect 312 BHK. If you ever have any questions, you can always get a hold of us here at Trailblazer or check our website, trailblazerrv.com. Thanks for watching.